Yeah, I was going to say that age is a number, but B, it is also a privilege to be able to speak about that number. That being said, one of the things for me that I learned 15 years ago was I had a fairly significant myocardial infarction. And then subsequently, it was diagnosed as far as having congestive heart failure. Puts that different perspective
Yeah.
on living each day completely.
Yes.
Now, for me, it has been, and it transcended long before that, as far as in order for me to feel good about the day that I just experienced, it was a very simple criterion, and that is I need to be able to touch somebody's life in a positive way. It's kind of like having those anonymous and nicknames on the hypnotherapy page.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to make a commentary on the page and not have enough integrity to put your own name. I really do have some challenges with that.
Yeah.
But the other side of it that we discussed, oh hell, it must have been 5, 6 years ago, was that there is a reason perhaps that some people ask or comment on these questions or make the comments in the posts in an anonymous mode for the simple reason that they are of that character as far as they don't want to be discovered. They want to have that anonymity.
Right. Or in the
It,
case of somebody who's actually looking for help, they might not feel comfortable sharing their name. And I
Mhm.
totally get that because your page isn't just professionals. It also has people looking for hypnotherapy. I'm going to actually officially introduce you. Do you mind? Are we ready? Are we ready,
All
guys?
right, ladies
Are we
and
ready?
gentlemen, this is the official announcement for.
Listen to that radio voice. Oh
You
my
better believe it. You know
goodness.
what? You'd like to take this opportunity. We share Visa, MasterCard, or American Express. You know what? Krissa is standing by. Operators are here to help you.
So, welcome everyone to another Hypnotherapy Uncensored Spotlight interview. If this is your first time here, I think maybe there's one or two that it might be, then welcome. And if you've been with us for a while, it is great to have you back. And I always like to just do a quick check in to see where everybody is joining us from. Not for any particular reason other than it tickles me, like my own amusement, just to see people from all over the whole rock that we live on joining us in this one little small community Zoom call, because that is not a thing that would have happened 10 years ago or even 7 years ago. All right. And that's it. We don't have anybody else. I guess the rest of them are probably not able
Well, there
to
we go.
type right now. San Diego. Perfect. I was just wondering if we had any other Canadians here for you, Kevin, but it doesn't look like it. So I want to share with everybody real quick for the people who haven't joined us before, a little bit about how Hypnotherapy Uncensored started and what you can expect from it, and when we meet and all that stuff. So about 5 years ago, I created the group Hypnotherapy Uncensored. Actually, it's probably more like 6 years ago now, because I wanted to create a place where I could belong, honestly, because I had been just recently um, ousted, kicked out of an academy forum. There was the very first hypno training school that I went to. I did not mean to be a pain in the ass, but apparently they did not like questions about their methods or pointing things out like, I don't think you started, I don't think you came up with this. I think I've seen this before. Or are you sure this is safe? Like, what about this other thing? So anyway, they finally were just like, enough of that, Krissa, you're out of here. So I got censored. And I decided that I wanted to create a place where people from our profession could all come together and have real conversations about hypnosis, hypnotherapy, about building a better practice, about just helping each other out, offering support, supervision, whatever we wanted without censorship from like the trainers or the schools of thought. or even each other. Because if you go through the checklist of rules that you have to agree to participate in the Hypnotherapy Uncensored group, one is the first one just says be kind. Now that's different than being nice. Be kind. Nice is an affectation. Kindness is like you're putting your whole self in there. Like that's a whole mindset, right? So, but I wanted conversations that were thoughtful, that were curious, that were challenging. I'm not afraid of that, but free from the pressure to sell or perform or pretend that we have all the answers. So, over the years, that mission has naturally evolved into these spotlight interviews because I would find people that I'd be like, oh, this person is doing amazing things in the world and I would love to learn more. I wonder if anybody else is curious about them too. So, what we do is on the first Wednesday of most months, not every month, but most months, I invite someone who has made a meaningful contribution to our profession. And sometimes they're well known and sometimes they're just quietly doing absolutely brilliant work in the background. And Kevin's an interesting one because he's a little bit of both. So we'll dig into that in a moment. But it's not an infomercial, it's not a webinar. We're not going to try and sell you anything. It's just really, truly a place to get to know each other and to help each other. And some of the most creative minds in hypnosis have joined me in the Hypnotherapy Uncensored Spotlights over the past 5 years. And every one of those conversations is currently available on our YouTube channel. I'll pop that into the chat for anybody who has not subscribed to it. There's 5.5 years worth of these, and it's all free, guys, you know? So you can't beat that. You're going to find trainings and tips and tricks and techniques, but you'll also find just getting to know the real people, you know, behind the trainings and the techniques and the groups and the whatever. So today, on that note, I am delighted to welcome Kevin Wolchansky. And many of you probably know Kevin as the owner and moderator of the Facebook group Hypnotherapy. It's a pretty big group. If you're not familiar with it, I don't know where you've been hiding. But every day, Kevin has a front row seat to like the questions, the debates, the breakthroughs, the disagreements, the celebrations, the growing pains, the awkwardness sometimes that happens in that community. And here's the interesting thing, at least to me, is that he has managed to somehow keep a pretty low profile of himself while also being the man behind the largest public online social media community for our industry, as far as I found. It has over 33,000 members, guys. So today we have a rare opportunity to get to know the man behind the group. And I don't even really want to focus on the group. Like I'll ask a little bit about that later, but I really want to get to know you, Kevin, the man. So I'm going to want to start off with, let's go into the like way, way, way back machine.
Done.
And who were you? Who was Kevin before hypnosis entered the picture?
Okay. Well, happy Wednesday to you and a happy Wednesday to all that are popping in. I truly appreciate, and once again, I love these types of situations and opportunities. I think that it's terrific. Thank you. And thank you for picking up a torch. And I use that analogy, I think, quite decisively in shedding some light on what is normally kept in the dark. I only ask that you change, unless you like the title, as far as, for me, being a pain in the ass to just a walking hemorrhoid. From my first marriage, I was referred to as an ass. Now, my second marriage, of course, I was referred to as an asshole. I much prefer being called an asshole because it has a function. An ass is just a useless piece of flesh. So you can call me an asshole all the time.
That's great. It has a function.
However, um, officially, I got my first degree in education. I'm an English teacher.
Okay.
Okay. Minor was in child psychology. During that time, and this is kind of where it all starts to unravel, but during that time, I became part of a program featured by the Students' Union of that campus for the crisis line, or what we called suicide prevention back then. Okay. We didn't have the kit gloves back then. It was what it was. And was introduced to a technique that certainly had elements of hypnosis attached to it.
Okay.
And so that was probably my first introduction to it, especially, and it was used especially after you had a hard phone call. Okay. And there was the benefit there. So I never actually did become certified as a teacher. At the time that I graduated, there was very, very little teachers' jobs. And I graduated when I was relatively young. But my first placement was going to be a grade 12 mentally dysfunctional classroom setting.
Oh, wow. They threw you right into the deep end. My goodness.
Now, there wasn't any special ed education back there. So you're right. I had to, and then I got gobbled up and knew. No, during the university times, of course, I had always been involved, like most university students, in the hospitality industry and had some official trainings as far
Me
as
too.
being, a server, actually having education and training as far as the culinary arts goes. So I
Yeah,
tossed
that
myself,
was mine. I was back of house almost exclusively for
yeah.
years, but yeah. Mhm.
So I tossed myself back into the hospitality industry more full time, and then pursued, in essence, the education out of New Chatel, and really honed in on the culinary arts. Came back and spent 20 years, 20 plus years in the hospitality industry. Eventually,
As
by
in the culinary side, back of house cooking.
both,
Oh,
both.
okay. All right.
I spent some time as sous and executive, and
Hmm.
then I accepted a position in a resort town amongst the mountains and the Rockies of Canada that is nestled in between the rivers.
Hmm.
Anyway, I spent about 10 years there as maitre d' and food and beverage manager. So I got to do the flambés and the Caesar salads, and it
Hmm.
was Mr. Showman. Not nearly as good looking as Hugh Jackman, but it still was Mr. Showman. Lights on, right?
I
With
miss those days when restaurants had that element of showmanship and performance
absolute,
to it. Yeah, yeah.
and it's tragic in the sense that it's a commentary and a reflection of our societal norms as well. Nobody takes, to me, the time to enjoy the gastronomy of a meal as opposed to just using it as a biological function. Fast forward, and that is come out of there and decide after the first marriage that the restaurant business and the hotel business, a little tough on family life.
Mm. Yeah,
So
that is true.
shortly after that, I actually became or was diagnosed with cancer.
Mm.
I had cancer of the salivatory glands, just under the lower mandible here. When I was receiving chemo, it's amazing here because we had a visitor in the room where we were all getting chemo that would give us guided visualizations to help with nausea. Earmark the second introduction to hypnosis and its power.
But they were calling it guided meditation as opposed to hypnosis. But yeah.
Well, and it's still to this day, I can't show up at here, it's called the Cross Cancer Clinic. Okay. And that's where I received my treatment. But I can't show up at the Cross Cancer and just go and do it. I have to
Mm-hmm.
be invited, and I can never use that I'm using hypnosis.
Mm.
So the stigmas still are very much prevalent. Made it through that batch and decided between a best friend and myself that we're going to start, in essence, a speed dating company. And this is where things get interesting. So I created Edmonton Date Night. Okay, so it was the first speed dating, 6.5 minutes, friendly, secure, nonpartisan, non-influential as far as speed dating goes. Ding,
Well,
ding,
I
dong,
have to
boom.
ask, what year was this?
Oh my goodness, this would have been in the 90s, early 90s.
Okay. Yep. That tracks. That's
Yeah.
about the speed dating, peak. Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, not
Yeah.
the peak. I guess it was the beginning. They're still
It
doing
was the
it now,
beginning.
but
And
yeah.
so
Uh-huh.
we ran that for 6 years. And something that really started to ire me
That is so
was
fascinating, by the way, that you started that there. Well, we have a
was
parallel.
that
I actually worked for a dating service for a little while as a
oh,
counselor, which utilized a fair amount of persuasive language,
no, really, you
not
don't
ethically
say.
persuasive. Not
Hmm.
ethically. I've learned the difference. I didn't feel great about it. Didn't last very long. But yeah, anyway, so we have that in common too. We have the culinary and now we have this. Continue on, dear sir.
All right. So one of the things that really ired me at the time was our events were always safe. It was only by first name. It was secure. Every precaution that we had taken that we took assured that the people that were sitting across from each other had every reasonable opportunity of relaxing and letting their
Mhm.
guard down. Habitually, every single event that we hosted, a good 15% of any given population became so anxious and anxious ridden that they would shut down. You
Mm.
you wouldn't even have a conversation. They would just stare at you and mumble and jumble. And I eventually got to the stage of this isn't right. This is horseshit. And so I made the eureka moment, and that was I don't like the blah, blah, blah about becoming a psychiatrist or a psychologist. As a matter of fact, I can't stand listening to your story. You are very good at puking up your regurgitated.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep. The little bio.
don't have the patience for that. I want to know what's the problem, how we're getting there, and let's move on to a solution. And that's another aside, and that is, could you please kindly explain to me in all of your wisdom what the hell the difference is between solution focused hypnotherapy? Are the rest of us doing scatterbrain stuff? Like, what the hell is this shit? Talk
I
about
guess,
misnomers.
yeah, that's so funny. I'd never thought about that. But yeah, just adding more words, solution focused. Yeah, as
Yeah,
opposed to,
verbal
as,
verbal salad. It's
mhm.
verbal salad is
Yeah,
what it
it
is.
is.
Anyway,
Yep.
so
Good
I then
points. Good points.
became interested in hypnosis, and a friend turned me on to Uncle Milty. So I got my first clinical series of books for Dr. Milton Erickson,
Of course. Yep.
the Wizard of the Desert. And I became ravenous and infatuated. I gotta, it's still to this day. And after being in practice for 21 years, you would think that my commitment and dedication, my being blindsided or being blinded to being Ericksonian would have abated a little bit because I recognize after all these years that it is the person that was doing this, it wasn't necessarily, and there's a phrase that he says, and that is, especially about Dr. Richard Bandler, and that was, they may try to crack the nut, but they'll never get at the meat. And Ericksonian's styles and techniques only worked for Milton Erickson.
Hmm.
The rest of us can mimic and mime and copy as far as his approaches, but his mastery was his. Anyways, I jumped forward. My apologies.
No, please continue on. It's uncensored,
So
remember?
I became, I studied here with an individual, and then I also became part of the National Guild and went down to Massachusetts. And I
Okay.
know that I'm mispronouncing that.
Mispronouncing that. Okay. Massachusetts. It does have a
Um,
fair amount of Ivy League schools. So I guess,
yep,
Yep.
yeah. And then in order for me to become quantifiable as a clinical, because I was a hypnotist at that point in time, and once again, the schools were all the same, and that was they had the structure so that they could soak you for as much money as they possibly could, and giving you, of course, a hypnotist, and then a master hypnotist, and then, oh, you wanted to move up to hypnotherapy and master hypnotherapist and
Yeah. It's all a bit
clinical
of a pyramid
hypnotherapist.
scheme, if you ask me.
Oh
But
my God, right? And it was. I mean, and it doesn't do for me. It doesn't do us any service in building credibility because we're all over the place with the word salad.
Yeah.
We've got more titles
Mm.
coming up, and now we've got the likes of what is it, quantum hypnotherapist,
Hey,
and
now that's me.
okay, and I'm
But
going okay.
it's quantum journeys hypnosis, but it's clinical and spiritual.
Yeah.
So I'm bringing in
So
the
and
science.
and so I'm not sure, and so that's where the old man comes in. I'm not sure where the quantum comes in because I'm all about the amalgamation as far as spirituality and the hypnosis because to me they're so interlinked.
Well, I
And
have an idea. You should interview me, and I would happily go into my take and my perception of what the quantum means and why it belongs, at least in my particular style of hypnotherapy. But for today, we're going to be talking about you. And you can go ahead and like, I have no problem with you going like, I don't think it belongs in there, or I question that or
no,
whatever.
I just
But
I don't know
if I
enough.
get started on why,
Yeah,
we'll just be talking about me and my perceptions. I want to keep it on you.
which is absolutely okay. There is nothing, and
Actually, I think there's quite a few threads on it in your group where
yeah,
I've
oh yeah,
like come right up and said like, okay, guys, you think I don't know what I'm talking about? And I'm just slapping the label on there because I went to some sort of little weekend marketing seminar. Let me fill you in on my actual understanding and educational background. So we can go there at some later
excellent,
date.
good, good. I'm
Anyway.
glad. And so for me, having the confined pigeonholes become very problematic. Anyways, I came back, hung my shingle, became in essence a hypnotherapist. I was able to get my clinical designation by working for a very short period of time in a dental office in
Hmm.
something that's probably no bigger than what my office down here is, and doing glove anesthesia for root canals and for
Yeah.
extractions and that kind of stuff.
I was going to say that's a great way to cut your teeth on it. But bum.
Excellent. Yeah. Um, and no overbite on that one, by the way. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
opened up,
Keep on going.
yeah, and then opened up as far as just the general practice. It was interesting in that I gravitated to anxiety and its disorders. And also at the very beginnings or the onset of my career, I had a MD that came to see me. She was actually she searched me out, and at that point in time, FM, so fibromyalgia, was not a categorized affliction. It was all in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And that comment makes me dance the dance of joy. I
Yeah,
love when people say it's all in your
it's all in
head.
your head. Me
That's where
too.
we play.
Yeah.
That is the gray matter in between your earlobes is my area,
Yeah.
right?
I feel the same
And
way. Mm-hmm.
I had done some research on how to use hypnosis and hypnotherapy as far as assisting those people with FM and put her actually through. It was, I think, yeah, I developed back then. It was not the normal 4 sessions that I had targeted my marketing to be, but for fibromyalgia, it was 6 sessions. And over the course of the 6 sessions, it got to the stage with her that she was able to function at a higher level of operation than she
Mm-hmm.
had previously. And that, once again, is where you do the dance of joy, and it's like, yes,
That's brilliant. Yeah.
yeah,
Have
right.
you ever decided to teach that to others? Like what you were doing in those 6 sessions, or is it too bespoke and, customized to each client to really teach it?
To be absolutely honest, the secrets to my success, Krista, is I teach everybody all the time, especially if you're sitting in the orange chair of therapy.
Oh,
It's
well,
all part
teaching the
of the
clients. Yeah.
education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But I meant, do you ever teach it to
Oh, yeah.
other
And
professionals?
you know what? Ever, I haven't considered ever becoming, in essence, a trainer.
Hmm.
For me, I when I do the guest speakings or the keynote speakers, I thoroughly enjoy having a similar conversation, specifically when it came to anxiety. I think anxiety and its subsequent disorders has received a bad rap, and it's the bad guy, and it really isn't. And I think the more that we feed that fuel, the more that we actually create the tighter cycle of anxiety being the bad guy. So it's that self-perpetuating, fulfilling prophecy.
I think we also mistake anxiety for stress and stress for anxiety frequently. And
Yeah.
stress can propel us forward in wonderful ways if we allow it. We don't want to do away with all stress. We need to be able to handle it though, which is where the anxiety comes in. So,
Well, and
yeah.
part of it, and so I use the analogy as far as anxiety is, in essence, a branch of being anxious. Is that an agreeable thing? And
Mhm.
so, as a young child sitting on the staircase on Hanukkah Eve or Christmas Eve before Santa came, I was anxious to the arrival in the next morning. It wasn't a bad thing,
No, it's an exciting thing. And it
right?
lights up the same area of the brain. Yeah, that excitement
Absolutely,
does.
right.
Yeah.
And so I believe that yes, it is all about the re-education of the individual
Yeah.
and taking them out of the huge broad strokes of somebody's paintbrush. And
Yeah.
it's one of the reasons why I won't say that I am anti psychiatric treatment, but I am wary of always the labels that they choose
Mhm.
to hang on people.
Yeah, the narratives that they throw on. And I got to
Right.
say, though, I got more clients from that Psychology Today article that came out a few years ago on insomnia because people were suddenly self-diagnosing themselves with insomnia. And the article, they retracted it later and said, oh, we said some things we probably shouldn't have said. You're not actually going to die if you don't sleep straight 8 straight hours like that. You'll die, but not from that. You're just
Yeah.
going to die, right? We made it sound like maybe you're going to die from that. Anyway, but I got a lot of people and just helping them to reframe that narrative and everything. So, yeah. But hey, I want to ask you, is there something that you believed early on in your career that you have completely changed your mind about now after doing it for so long?
Yeah. Actually, I think that the introduction, and I thought about this actually this morning.
Hmm.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, what a nice coincidence.
Oh, it is a coinkydink, and that is, I take a look at the terminology that we used way back when, and that was the person that was sitting in the couch or on the therapy chair was the subject. The person that was sitting in the other chair was the operator. And it gave, in essence, that power relationship
Mhm.
that I don't believe has done us any services.
You are
I
speaking my language, sir. I did a
excellent,
whole thing on who's your daddy and like breaking down the power dynamics within the therapeutic setting.
yeah,
Like the
and
client should be the main character. Yeah.
it's interesting in the regards that there was one of the instances I was doing. It was a seminar, but I was doing it, and there was an individual who, after the presentation came up, and you get them in the public eye, and that was, well, you can't hypnotize me. And I went,
Always. There's always that one
right?
person. Like,
I'm
okay.
strong-willed, I'm strong-minded, whatever it might be, the horse shit that you feed yourself. And I went, you get to be right. But it was a component that was said that all of a sudden made me realize that I don't, and I never have done anything to an individual. And for me, part of how I describe what I do is I help you get out of the way of you for you to discover the real you that you want to become.
Yes.
You
We're
know, I
simpatico
don't
on that too. Yes,
No, I don't
absolutely.
have the magic wand, and this is called therapy, not because I have a degree in something else, but this is called therapy because it's work. And without your illicit
I
participation,
like
guess
that.
what?
It is, it's a collaborative effort. It's not, you're going to
Yeah.
fix me. There is, and therapy is work. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the center when it comes to you're going to fix me. It's that concept. And it's that concept that I've been fighting for years and
Hmm.
years, and that was you ain't freaking broken. You
Yeah.
don't need fixing.
Yeah. And you're also not just a flip that somebody can come, a switch that somebody can come over and flip, you know? You have that power within you. But yeah, yeah. All of these supposed maladaptive behaviors, whatever, like they're there for a reason. Nobody's broken. The brain is doing what the brain is supposed to do, you know? Yeah. Um, so I would like to move on to is you kind of already answered it, but I want to actually ask it directly. Is there anything in our profession or anything that our profession tends to overcomplicate, in your opinion?
Hmm. I think in the very structure of your inquiry, it leads to a different segue, and that is, what do we do that would ever allow us to be considered professional? The level of infighting, bickering
Mm,
that takes place amongst us. And once again, you being from the United States, I do not know specifically about the legislation or the regulations of your particular state.
yeah.
I can speak that when I first started 21 years ago, hypnotherapy was considered a quack type of science and not even scientifically involved.
Yeah.
Um,
Pseudoscience.
right.
Mm,
And it's largely in part because of our inability to form a college that is standardized in its practices and standardized in its requirements and standardized. And I mean, you have people out there, and I love the way that you said it. You have people out there that did a weekend seminar, a weekend workshop,
mm-hmm.
and they come back with a little piece of paper and a little gold seal saying, I'm a hypnotist. And that was part of, for me, the biggest difference. And there is a member that was incredibly vocal on the hypnotherapy page who is a stage hypnotist and is a phenomenal stage hypnotist that has utilized stage hypnosis and its techniques in the therapeutic mode.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once again, I'm old school, and supposedly this individual is even older school than I am, but I'm old school in the sense the difference between what some associates of mine do on stage does not entitle them to dabble into the therapeutic area of it. You don't have, in essence, the resources. It's one thing. We have an individual that crosses from shore to shore, doesn't do it anymore, but from shore to shore, hitting every major city for a stop smoking cessation program. And his last name represents the basic ingredient for a Caesar salad, just not to name drop. But it
I'm just going to
was
let that one just stay right there. You guys can follow that breadcrumb trail if you want. Go ahead. I know who you're talking about, but go ahead.
okay. Good. Did he dip down into the States too, or his reputation is just
I just assumed that he was North American, but I mean, like, all of
it
I,
could
but I
be.
could be
It could
wrong.
be.
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm just very familiar with that he
Mm-hmm.
did the circuits back and forth in every major city in Canada. But it was, once again, the percentage types of things. When I do a group presentation, when I do a seminar, when I do a keynote speaker, if I'm using in essence the old styles, and that is, I know that 18% of any given population is going to be highly receptive and they're great for, in essence, sharing the powers of hypnotic features.
Mm-hmm.
They're great for stage shows. The rest of them require, and for me, they require an customizable
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
therapeutic approach to them. So using the commands and the stage kind of presence in a therapeutic mode, although it might work on a few, it might work on some more than a few, to me is running a highly dangerous situation. And I'm reminded, I think it was my second year of practicing as a hypnotherapist. And of course, back then, you'd take absolutely anything and everything. So there was a lot of smoking cessation that I did.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an individual that we did the first session. He saw the reduction, but there wasn't anything between the second and the third session as far as diminishing or strong desire. Well, when I spent a little bit more time listening to him, the smoking was what was keeping the wheels on his wagon, emotionally and psychologically. So had we continued down the path without paying attention to a substitution or a surrogate in order for stress, I could have done and been participant with a lot of damage to an individual that I would have been blindly oblivious to.
Right. Just by taking the thing away in a cookie cutter fashion without actually realizing what they need. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Right.
would
And
imagine that the stage hypnotists who cross over into the therapeutic realm would eventually figure that out,
maybe,
when people
maybe.
aren't getting better, and be like, oh my gosh, I got to do things differently. I better like expand my horizons and continue my training. And, you know,
And once again, so we get back to what's changed. And so
mhm,
in your question, that was, what have we done to actually climatize or to associate us with it being a profession, first and foremost. We are splintered, we are scattered, we are all over the place, and there are a combination of snake oil salesmen and media hype and all of those types of things that sell the programs, and they're
mhm.
all over the place. And to me, the healers and the true healers that have, in essence, the natural calling. And I know that that gets really, really wonky because I truly believe, for me, that my pursuit, my passion about the powers of the mind and using hypnosis in a therapeutic modality, as well as everything else that you learn along the way, the word speak and the NLP and the timeline and all that kind of stuff, was a calling for me. It wasn't something that I
Yeah.
went to pursue. It was something that I had a flavor of and went, oh my God, I need more.
Yeah. I kind of see it as, and it's pretty easy for me to tell when I'm talking to somebody or reading somebody's post or, whatever, people who are doing this because they want to be in service to others, to help others, to and that doesn't mean they're perfectly perfect, right? I mean, they're also an ongoing work in progress and healing and
Mhm.
growth and expansion and whatever. But they're there to be of service to others, as opposed to the ones who are there to serve their own egos.
Yeah.
And you can
And it
tell the
comes back
difference, and
to,
it's one of the things I love about your group, and I'm going to bring that up here in a minute, but
okay.
um that the ones that are there in service to their own egos, they are pretty flagrant about it. And I'm like, thank you so much for showing me who you really are. I
There is
have,
there is no
I don't
subtlety
want to
there.
shut that down. I'm so glad that you don't shut that down, because I'm like, oh, okay, good. Now I can make sure that I just don't even pay attention to this person.
But and part of it for me, and it was, once again, it was the indoctrination early on, and that was when you sit back and you listen to somebody who does what we do, and they say, "Yeah, I had a really powerful session." The first question that comes to mind is, powerful for whom?
For who? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because if that is your criteria, then you're fulfilling something other than the therapeutic process, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably one of the biggest changes as far as the rest of it, and that is, for me, what's probably changed most is my understanding and my practice when it comes to the relationship and being able to empower
Yeah.
again, the individual.
That's really what
Um,
it's all about.
and,
Yeah.
and, and it really is. I mean, I had the conviction that when it came to motivation, and we speak about that in a couple of the different forms, but this person that came to see you didn't have enough motivation or didn't, they were looking for that magic wand kind of stuff. And it was like one of the things for me that I've always appreciated and recognized, and that is in order for you to drop the dime and pick up the phone and give me a phone call, there had to
There's
be enough
motivation.
discomfort for you to be motivated to do so. Now, it may have been the wrong motivation method, but it was still motivation. So you recognize that there was something different. You don't know what it was, but you recognize there was potential. And it is that conundrum of potential, or is that pursuit of potential that you are after. My job,
It's yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
right?
I thought you
My
were done.
job is to get you out of the way of you long enough for the you to recognize a you that you want to become.
Right. Yep. Um, for a population of people who work with people's psychological subpersonalities, parts, if you will, ego states, whatever you want to call them,
Yep.
um, it never ceases to astound me how many people will not look beyond the fact that they accidentally started just communicating with the ego state that isn't so crazy about change. Clearly, there's another ego state, or they wouldn't be sitting in your office or on your Zoom call or whatever.
Yep.
Right. So we need to enlist the help of that one. But yeah, when people say, well, they're not at threshold, they must not really want it. And I'm like, part of them does. I mean, unless maybe they were forced to do it, but that's so rare when somebody's actually like bullied into calling the hypnotist, right? And it's usually kids that are kind of
Well,
forced,
and
but yeah.
and I once again, it is typically spouses.
Yeah.
And for me, the interaction is more so around the smoking and weight management than it is anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my wife, my kids have been on my ass forever to quit smoking.
And then when I say why, and they finally get down to like, I guess they love me and they don't want me to die, then I'm like, okay, how do you like if you can get on board with that, then we've got a state we can work with. But if you're like, I don't really care if I leave them behind and I die and whatever, then I'm like, maybe this isn't the right fit for you.
Well, okay, so and so you run into the same problem then, Chris, or the same challenge. And that is, there is that non-desired state. So as practitioners, do we continue by shifting, twisting, and redirecting to something that is then affiliated to a desired state?
If it's not already there organically for the client, then forcing it feels pretty unethical to me. If the
Oh,
client truly doesn't want to, um, they have no reason to quit smoking. And I've run into that. There was a woman who she actually started in her 50s. She had
mhm,
absolutely no health issues from it whatsoever. She started, and it was because her mother had just died, and her mother was a lifelong smoker, and there was the grief, and it made her feel calm. It was a soothing thing, right?
yeah.
And she was getting a lot out of it. And when I was really like, secondary benefits were so obvious, and she was aware of them. She was like, I make no bones about that. And I'm like, no, I get it. There was nothing else that we could come up with in any way that would take the place of that. And so I said, look, at some point, it might wear out its welcome.
Mhm.
You might decide you don't want to smell like that, or maybe your partner doesn't want to kiss you because you taste like an ashtray, or maybe you start to get a little winded when you're hiking, whatever. At that point, if you really want to find something else that will help comfort you, give me a call. But at that point, there was no downside. There was no downside for her. So I'm not going to keep trying to force her into
No.
developing an ego state that perceives herself as having a downside. I'm not going to I'm not going to take a whole bunch of like shame and guilt and blame and say, here, have this instead. You know,
Well, and
I don't
once
want to
again,
make it worse. I want to make her help her feel empowered.
when we talk about smoking cessation, it's probably one of the largest separators, and that is, are you moving them, and do you move them towards something, or do
Or
you
away.
use, in essence, the fear mongering? And when I meant to, and by the question is
I
fine
think it
too.
really depends on the client, though. Some clients are more motivated by the carrot and some are more motivated by the stick. And we need to work with that to some degree. I don't think we can cookie cutter it, you
No, and
know?
you're absolutely right. And but it is interesting as far as how the programs that are currently being taught out there do not give you the tools to be able to discern. You are that one trick pony, and that perturbs me.
A lot of
And
them.
yeah, right.
Yeah. And so you
Um,
just need to cobble together what works. Take training from multiple people, give it your own
and that to
flavor.
me
Yeah.
becomes then that pursuit of training, that pursuit of education, and knowing that the more that you are aware of, the less that you are actually knowing.
Yeah.
That there is so much more, and when it comes to the mind and techniques and all the rest, I mean, you can take a look at our history, you can take a look at the craft, you can take a look at what was done in Braid's time in
Well, and all those guys were brand new at one point and coming up with brand new language and terminology to describe what was happening. And
yeah,
I do find it interesting when the old school hypnotists, which you have said, you have identified yourself as such, but they're like, well, you can't do that. That's never been done. That's new. And I'm like, it's always new. People, it started off new. James Braid was new. What Erickson
yeah.
developed, all like that was brand new.
Well, and so the question that, and once again, this is for the cocktail hour, and that is, would Mesmer have been as disenfranchised by the court if it wasn't for his ego state? If he
Mm.
had continued along his merry way and doing what he did, would he have
Which was
continued?
admittedly helping people. It was just he was misunderstood about how, but
Right.
there
And
were people that
he
were
made it,
benefiting.
he made I won't say it was an enemy, but he made a opponent when it came to Benjamin Franklin, right? Who, for
Ah.
whatever reason, had a real hard on for Mesmer. And I think part of it was
Two
that America,
egos.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I think
Mm-hmm.
part of it was that ego state for both of them, and
Mm-hmm.
being very, very, self-confident, shall we say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That sort of
but
macho
that,
posturing kind of.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but that's probably the biggest change for me. I mean,
before we go, because we
yeah,
actually only have a few minutes left and you're fascinating, I could talk forever, but people are going to want to know this. Some of them might have even tuned in for this question. At some point in your career, you became the steward of what is now the largest public hypnotherapy group on Facebook.
yeah.
Did you ever imagine it would grow into what it is today? What has moderating, you know, a very active community, sometimes full of conflict, sometimes spicy as all get out. And sometimes it's actually really, really beautiful and helpful. And I love learning about all these people. And even when it is spicy as all get out, I'm still super appreciative for that reason that I told you before. So I'm like,
Mhm.
thank you for showing your true colors. Now we know who you are. But anyway,
Yeah.
what is that like moderating over 30,000 people, but also still doing it almost from the back seat? Like you're not jumping in and micromanaging, as far as I can tell. Somebody just wants to come in. Okay, they're coming in at the very tail end. I'm so sorry. They can watch this on YouTube later. But anyway, Kevin, tell us about that. We have, yeah, we'll say like 8, 9 minutes. I know people are going to want to know.
I I created, and earlier I'd spoke about my frustrations when it came to the public's perception of hypnotherapists and hypnotherapy as a justifiable and modality of treatment. And for me, when I created the hypnotherapy page, its brainchild was that I wanted a place for practitioners to share ideas, but I also wanted it to be that safe space that the curious John Q. public
Yeah.
could ask without, in essence, the shtick that you get when you make the phone calls or when you visit somebody's website. Yeah.
Yeah. Like let people peek under the hood a little. I love that.
Right.
I
And
actually
have
don't want
that
to do that in
personal
my
touch.
group. So I'm so glad you have that in your group because I go there for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's how it originally started. Now, it has developed on a consistent basis from its very inception. It really has. And you asked as far as, had I ever considered, I had no expectation whatsoever. I wanted to
Mm,
create that safe space. And
yeah.
where this goes organically is where it goes. Moderating it has been educational.
I bet.
Okay? And it is different in Kevin Wolchansky, the certified clinical hypnotherapist.
Wolchansky or Chansky? Kansky?
Wolchansky.
Chansky. Okay. I did say it
Yep.
right. Okay,
Yep, you
good.
did
Yeah.
have it right. Yeah.
Okay.
The clinical certified hypnotherapist and his opinion, and the opinion of the moderator for the hypnotherapy page.
Hmm.
Because my goal, my task, my responsibility is to make sure that the rules that are established from the page, and I've had to add to them now too, but that the rules of the page are being observed. That you are free to express, in essence, your opinions, so long as you're able to embrace that that's what they are,
Hmm.
right?
And
That
accept
you're
that other people might disagree.
correct. And having and so having that discourse, having that forum as far as conversation and rebuttals and debates and all that kind of stuff. And throughout the years of the page, man, has there been some activity and some very, very heated conversations.
Oh, yeah.
Subsequently, I mean,
I
if
mean,
you
just
get
grab
on
the
a tangent,
popcorn sometimes,
yeah,
you know?
right. And so that's when, as the moderator, you give the warnings, you give, the every opportunity of saying, this is what we're trying to establish here. This is the goal for my page. And you cross over the line and you're gone. It is very similar. And I know that it's challenging and frustrating for many who want to comment on the page because the page is public. Okay. And I make sure that the page is going to be public so that everybody has that opportunity. You don't need to be invited. In order to post anything on the page, you still have to abide by its
Hmm.
guidelines and rules. And the rules that I have for the page are that I don't want your page that you're promoting or your page that you're coming from to only endorse, in essence, the practices or sell your book or your courses, all the rest. John Q. Public doesn't deserve that if that's kind of the association. This is not, in essence, the billboard for your advertising. And that's a tough one because it's like, well, yeah, but I'm so and so, and I've experienced this, and I bring this, and what I have to say is valid. Yes, it might be, but not on my page. And I do become very possessive about that.
Hmm.
It's the same as, um, making the segue as far as away from hypnosis and hypnotherapy. People see, in essence, the articles, people see the people that are on there, and all of a sudden this now becomes a natural health page. No, this is a hypnotherapy page, right? I don't care about the Reiki. I don't care about the yoga. I don't care about the chakras. That's just not what this page is for. Go find someplace else. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
No,
I
I
am
totally
being
agree. Yeah.
I am being very respectful
There
and
are pages that
respectful,
are dedicated just to Reiki, and they would not appreciate a hypnotherapist coming in and saying, "Hey." So, yeah,
right?
get it.
So that's what it is. It is part of my twice a day. I actually go through the page and moderate it. And once again, it has been a wonderful exercise in tolerance and keeping an open mind.
Hmm.
Because and you and I have had that conversation a little bit earlier. There are some things that I haven't been able to wrap my head around
Yeah.
that just do not make sense to me. And that's all right.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that that is right.
That's a good distinction. I like that. There's some discernment there. I was actually very pleasantly surprised to discover, like once we became friends and I started seeing more of the stuff that you're putting on your own,
Yep.
profile, that you are as open-minded as you are, that you are as interested in like the whole person, not just the brain, from that, clinical materialistic standpoint. And like I'm constantly applaud, like when I'll see it, I'll be like, oh, that's a great one. I'm going to screenshot that and save it, so I could
Yeah.
share it for my own people at some point. So that's really lovely. But the fact, I love that you don't impose hardly anything on the people in the group. Like you stay moderator without imposing your particular systems, methods, beliefs, etc. And I really appreciate that. And Adele just wrote in the chat that she really appreciates you for holding the space in the hypnotherapy group and moderating it so
Oh,
well. So
thank
it's
you.
very
Thank you.
appreciated. I'm sure that the people who feel a little ganged up on sometimes wish that you would be a little bit more micromanagerial, but at the same time, then we don't get to actually see who all of the players are. And there's consistently about 10 that are louder than all the others, you know? And here's what I think is interesting though. Just like any community, any organic community, if there isn't somebody who steps forward to actually like, police the situation, the members themselves will. The
They
members
can. And
themselves will
once
be
again,
like, you
it,
know what, you're being unfair and unkind, whatever. And then that person gets put in their place and you allow for that. So I
and to
appreciate
me,
that.
I guess the vision is one huge cocktail party,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
you can't come into a cocktail party and just say, you can't talk that way. Hey, you over there, you should be talking over, you
Right.
can't
I
you
mean,
can't
it's
moderate a
and it
cocktail
is,
party like
and
that.
it's got to be that safe place. But the price that we pay for that safe space is also that, you know what, our opinions aren't necessarily the only ones out there.
Exactly.
And I
Exactly.
love how you make mention as far as, there's probably a dozen people that are incredibly contributory
There you
to the
go.
page.
That was a very diplomatic
Did you like that
way of
politically
describing
correct
that.
way of
Yes.
saying that? I am a wordsmith after
There
all.
we go.
Um, and I find that those individuals that jump up and down the most are also the ones that are standing on some shaky ground as far as conviction goes.
Hmm. I think that's kind of the case in not just this industry, but all, people that are the loudest, the it's
Yeah,
my way or the highway. Yeah, they tend to not have as much actual substance going on. it's
yeah,
it's it's bluff, bluster, it's performative, all that stuff.
yeah,
So this
absolutely.
is one of the few uncensored Zoom calls that I have decided not to take questions from the audience, because you moderate a group of over 33,000 people. And I was like, if we start that, we're going to be here forever. People are going to be like, that thing that I said 5 years ago, Kevin, how come blah, 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 blah. Right. So
Yeah.
sorry about that, guys. If you were waiting to like have your say so with the man himself, you're going to have to reach out to him separately. But I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. This was an absolute delight. Thank you to everybody who showed up for the live call. Thank you for spending part of your day with us too. And this is going to be seen by many more people in the YouTube channel as well. That YouTube channel is in the chat. You can go click on it. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe to that Hypnotherapy Uncensored YouTube channel, where you'll find all of the other ones, all the other spotlights from the past 5 years. And if there's someone you'd like to see in the hot seat, I'd love to hear who that is. Maybe it's you, maybe it's somebody you'd like to nominate. Feel free to reach out. Some of my favorite interviews have come from suggestions by members of the community that I've never even heard of the person they suggest. So anyway, it's till next time, stay uncensored. You were an absolute delight, Kevin. Thank you so much for
Oh,
sharing
thank you very
your
much.
wisdom and your humor and your wit and your experience. You're good people, good people.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yep. Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. Happy hump day, as you said.
Happy hump day. Be
All
well.
right. Be well. Take care. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye.